All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Run Right Build podcast. We are chatting on the Leadville Trail Marathon today. Today is Sunday. It's the middle of Jack's nap. And yesterday I ran the Leadville Trail Marathon and I learned a ton. It was a great race for me. And I figured I want to hop right on the mic and make a tactical episode where I can document everything that I learned and teach through it. And so the goal of this episode is to make you a better endurance athlete. I want to share what went into this race experience for me, how I executed in the race, because to me, I'd never done anything like this. And there is an argument to be made that yesterday was my best executed endurance race of all time, even though I'd never done anything like it and kind of had no idea what to expect. And so I've got listed out 9 tactical insights and lessons that I want to share with you that will make you a better endurance athlete no matter what phase of the endurance journey you are in or what your goals are. Let's do a quick check here. We got 2 drink supremacy going on. We got Old Faithful, Mountain Valley sparkling water, fresh out the fridge, and I'm on half gallon number 3 of the day with electrolytes. I'm staying hydrated. Like I said, it's in the middle of Jack's nap right now, so I'm going to make this one pretty quick. But I got to start out, before I even give you the 9 insights, I'll list them all out before I dive into them. I got to say, maybe this is a bonus 10th that I'm starting with. I did a little bike ride this morning with Jack on my gravel bike, 30-minute ride, and then I just went and did like a 30-minute swim just to keep my body moving and recover. And to me, this is like a micro and macro endurance lesson. When I do something big, I like to just stay moving. Doesn't mean that it's intense, doesn't mean that my mind is stressing about it, but I'm just getting the body, getting it loosened up. I'm getting outside in the sun, I'm getting fresh air. And to me, this is like a single race lesson, but it's also something that has been valuable to me in my larger endurance journey. Like, you do the race, got to do another one. You do the first 70.3, like, man, your capacity has increased. You got to get a next race on the calendar. You got to keep this process rolling forward. And that does not mean that you just got to stay in this race mode where you're building and you're stressed and you're feeling like the pressure of all this is coming down. Like, you got to be able to just be light and move and let the body open up and stay loose. And so that is what I did today. And maybe there's somebody out there listening to this that's done one endurance event, maybe one, maybe 2. And it's like they thought they did a 70.3. And then it's like, I kind of want to just get back to running. I kind of want to just get back to strength. I would challenge you. Where's your mindset? Is your mindset craving a little bit of that 70.3 mission? A little bit of that, I'm keeping my body moving in this process. A little bit of that, I got something I'm working towards that scares me a little bit. So with all that said, maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. Either way, we're rolling on here. 9 insights, 9 lessons. Number 1 is choosing new arenas of competition. This has been my theme for the year, and this Leadville Trail Marathon was basically the pinnacle of that. Lesson number 2, quick turnaround racing. Lesson number 3, heart rate execution. Lesson number 4, watch data screen setup. Lesson number 5, real-time problem solving in race. Lesson number 6, tactical use of poles. You know I love my poles, and they showed up big time for me in this race. Lesson number 7, dynamic movement and posture. A building lesson there off the Substack that I shared a week or 2 ago. Lesson number 8, anchoring to other runners to hold yourself accountable. And lesson number 9, understanding the bigger picture. That is where we're headed. And I'm just going to cruise through this thing. And we're all going to get a little bit better by documenting this here and absorbing these insights. All right. Lesson number 1, deliberately choosing new arenas. So to me, 2025, my competition structure this year has been focused on getting into arenas that I have not been in before. I finished 2024 doing my 5th Ironman, and what I realized was that Ironman training was no longer really that challenging for me. Kind of ironic because I just made a YouTube video saying I'm having to talk myself in to my Ironman World Champs prep. But what I was really looking for in 2025 is like using the fitness and the endurance experience that I've built up and putting myself into environments that make me uncomfortable, because that Ironman prep is relatively comfortable. And maybe I'll do a different podcast on how I'm like totally changing my prep related to this Ironman build that I'm in, but that's also why I'm doing the YouTube series. So this Leadville Trail Marathon, this was the 5th competition that I had done in 2025 that was completely brand new to me. The first, I did an uphill ski race back in January, which ended up being like a 55-minute straight threshold effort up a mountain. Second competition was a 50-miler. I did that with the tribal squad. I did that in a coaching capacity, but I'd never done a 50-miler before. Competition number 3 was a local half marathon. I had run 2 half marathons back in my early 20s, but I would not count those because they were not competitive in any way. And so to me, like going balls out and running as hard as I can in a half marathon, I had never done that. And I was nervous as hell for that race. Competition number 4 was the 50K that I did 2 or 3 weeks ago in Divide, Colorado. I also did that in a coaching capacity. And I have done a 50K before, but it has been about 4 years. And doing it in a coaching capacity was putting me into a different environment. And then this race, the Leadville Trail Marathon, I had never done anything like this. And this was a pure competition. I'm going as an athlete and I'm looking to send it. And so to me, I was just really pumped with how this year has come together. And if you are listening to this, I would really challenge you to think about ways that you can continue to push yourself without just doing more. In every race that I just spoke about, all 5 of those races, like I had done bigger events last year. I did a 100-miler. I did an Ironman. I'm still doing an Ironman this year, right? But it's all like scaled back, lower the bar, raise the execution, higher intensity, race better, compete, and use the experience that I've got to see what comes to life in these experiences. So that was really point number 1. Lesson number 2 that has stuck out to me here through this experience was quick turnaround racing. So this race was on Saturday, and I left on Friday at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I was back on the dot Saturday at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it was a 27-hour door-to-door round trip for me. And the 50K that I did in Divide, Colorado was basically the same. I think it was like 29 or 30 hours because that race took a little bit longer. But it was still the idea of like one night, I leave in the afternoon and I am home in the late afternoon the next day. And to me, as I've now got a 2-year-old, I'm still going to be doing Ironmans. I'm still going to be traveling to team races. But it's really valuable for me to be able to find these ways to compete that are basically in my backyard. Now, I am fortunate that Leadville is within driving distance for me, but it's still almost 3 hours from my house. So it's not like it's 20 minutes away. And it makes me think about the first triathlon that I did when I was living in Philly. I did it in the Poconos. And the Poconos are like maybe 2 hours north of Philly. And so for you listening to this, like I would really challenge you, what are competitions that are within a 2 to 3 hour radius that you can do? Like that might completely expand the ways that you are able to live out this endurance lifestyle and keep yourself competing without having it be a huge lift on your family. Like for me, pretty much left on Friday, and my wife just had to handle Jack getting up from his nap. I left in the middle of nap time, so he gets up at 3, and then she's got, late afternoon, dinner, bedtime, books, bath, all that jazz. And then the next day she had a really fun day, taking him to the park, stuff like that. And so it wasn't this like 3-day solo mom duty, putting a ton of pressure on the family so that I can go compete. And what was extra special with coming back from the Leadville race is that I got home at 4:30 and I grilled out for my family, and we had a little picnic in the backyard here. So just like a really strong execution, go out, ball out in the race, push yourself like crazy, and get home and be there for your family. Super important to me. Okay. I'm realizing that I haven't even shared the results of the race. So this race, I haven't even talked about what the race was. So this race, Leadville Trail Marathon, this is part of the Leadville race series. Most notable race, I would assume, is the Leadville 100, the 100-mile trail marathon, ultra marathon. They've also got a 100-mile mountain bike, a 50-mile mountain bike, a 50-mile trail run, They've got this marathon, and there was a half marathon. I think they've got like a 10K as well. That's like another weekend. So this marathon is considered the hardest marathon in the country. It starts at a little over 10,000 feet. I got the shirt on, so I can give you the stats right off the shirt because they're on here. It starts at 10,152 feet, and it goes up to Mosquito Pass, which is at 13,185 feet. And so it's 26.2 miles. It has around 6,000 feet of elevation gain, and it is at extreme elevation. And so for me, when I went into this race, this is now weaving in well, the heart rate execution can pretty much lay the foundation for how I went into this. I went into this race, I'm like, I have no idea what to expect. I've never done a race like this. I've done a lot of trail stuff, but it's always been like long trail stuff that's just been about finishing, right? 100-miler, 100K, the first 50K that I did. The team races that I've done in a coaching capacity are about getting the final guys across the finish line. So I haven't really had a trail experience where I'm like pushing and I'm looking to do as best as I can. And so the only frame that I really had on where I could expect to finish in this race is that they had basically like group 1 is what they called it, which was like if you expect to be between 8-minute pace and 11-minute pace. And 11-minute pace would get you finishing under 5 hours. And then they had like group 2 would be 11-minute pace to like 14 or 14:30. And that would get you under a 6-hour finish. And so to me, I was like, all right, well, I mean, I should be under 6 hours. I should be able to like be in this kind of second group. There were a bunch of groups beyond that too, but I'm like looking at the top ones, like where can I kind of compete and battle it out? I'm like, I should definitely be in group 2 under 6 hours, but like maybe I could be under 5. Like I kind of don't know what to expect. And so my only real intention was like, I want to find that steady push that I can get, that I just can control all day long. And heart rate training just came in absolutely enormous in this race, more so than ever before. So the start of this race, I started right at the front. Shout out to Cam and Trevor at Tahoe 200 2 weeks ago. They started right at the front, and they got a cool photo. And Cam was with me. Shout out to Cam. He came up to Leadville and crewed with me. And he was like, you got to start at the front. And I was like, all right, fuck it. I'll start at the front. And so I stood right at the front, and gun goes off. And the way that this course starts out is it's basically in the town of Leadville, and the town of Leadville is like almost on this like little slanted slope. Like the streets are kind of this slant, and it went up the slant. And so you had almost a mile to get out of town that was on like pavement. And then you headed onto wide dirt trails. And I would say that probably the first 3 miles of the race were uphill. And so I start with the front of the race, and I have no expectation to stay in the front. I'm just like, let me just start up here and just sort of see what happens. And so all of a sudden, within 30 seconds, my heart rate is up near my heart rate threshold because I'm running with this front group. And just like the whole mass of the start is like everybody's running. I don't know what folks in the back were doing. Maybe people were walking, but like it seemed like everybody was just running. So I'm just running. And all of a sudden, I look down and my heart rate's like up into the 140s. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm working. And then it's like I'm trying to feel out like, okay, well, like when am I going to like start to walk? When am I going to like hike any of this? And I'm like, we're a mile in. Nobody's stopped to walk. So I'm like, I'm not walking. We're a mile and a half in. Nobody's stopped to walk. So I'm like, I'm not walking. But now I'm like, 15 minutes in. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to like settle into like this really high tempo effort. My heart rate's now up nearly to like 150. And I'm like through that initial surge where it's like, holy fuck, what the hell's going on? Like my heart rate's going crazy, and I'm going to need to settle in for what's going to be a 5 or 6 hour effort for me. And so the race starts to thin out a little bit, and we basically end up getting to this point that was steep enough that it just made sense to start walking and hiking. And to me, I'm going to start to blend point 3 and point 4 here. Point 3 is heart rate execution, and point 4, lesson 4, is watch data screen setup. So the watch data screen setup that I chose to go with, shout out to Coros. I'm not a sponsored athlete by Coros, but I should be. I switched from Garmin to Coros last week, and one thing that I've really enjoyed about Coros is that on the app, you can really easily customize the data screens for whatever activity you're going to be doing. So for trail run, I set up my data screens, and my secondary screen only showed big heart rate graph, then it showed pace, and then it had a tiny indicator on total time. I did not want to be concerned with distance. I knew I could go out there and battle 26.2 miles, but I knew also that if my mind is getting to a place where I'm starting to like count miles and look down and see what mile I'm at, like that's not going to set me up for success. Like I'm committed to 5 or 6 hour hard effort here. Like let's just ride heart rate and monitor our pacing and stay accountable with pacing, but let the rest kind of just be from there. And so what ended up just being amazing is that on my data screen, I had this heart rate graph. And I got to just shout out the value of doing heart rate testing. So back in December, that was the last run test that I did. And if you're inside a tribal, you're going to be able to plug these exact numbers, your exact testing numbers, into the training zone calculator that I've built out. And it's going to tell you the exact information that I rode this entire race with. So back in December, I did a 30-minute threshold run test, 30 minutes all out. And the way that I set zones is I take the final 20 minutes, right? You have the first 10 minutes where the heart rate is kind of ramping. It's going to get high right away when you're doing a 30-minute all-out test, but you take those final 20 minutes when it kind of settles a little bit. And that is what you then plug in as your heart rate threshold. And so that plugs into the calculator, which then spits out your zones, right? And so to me, in that test that I did back in December, my peak 20-minute heart rate average was 162. Okay, you plug that into the training zone calculator that I've got inside of Tribal, and that spat out that the start of my zone 4 is 153 beats per minute. And I got to tell you, the precision, so that, what does that mean? What does that mean? So that means that my zone 3 goes up to 152, and then my zone 4 starts at 153. Now, what's the difference between zone 3 and zone 4, and why is that so important? Well, that is what's called, this is going to nerd out for some of the science folks here. That is called LT2, lactate threshold 2. And that is where your body, whatever that number is for you, right? Your number might not be 153, right? I've got a genetically low resting heart rate. So if your number's way higher, don't freak out. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to teach you how to push yourself and teach you how to race. And this is exactly how to do it. That LT2, so for me, 153, that is where my body starts accumulating lactate at a rate that I cannot clear it. My body is not able to clear lactate. And so this is not like a complete Peter Attia podcast. You want to go learn more about that and lactate clearance and pyruvate, go do that, right? The point is, when you get into zone 4, if your zones are set right, that is the point where your body is not going to be able to sustain that effort for very long, right? How long you can sustain a threshold effort, it kind of depends on your fitness and experience. Sometimes it can be 30 minutes. Sometimes it can be an hour if it's like a best sustainable effort. If you don't know how to push yourself like that, then it might be less than that. That's okay too. But when you have experience and you start to stack this information, that number becomes fucking crucial. And so that number has been relevant for 70.3 bike efforts that I've done. But I have never had it play out as effectively as it did in this race. And so to me, what was really cool is because I had that watch heart rate graph up on my Coros, my zone 3, so up to, I forget the number that it starts at. I think it's 139. So 139 to 152 is my zone 3. So that's yellow. That's yellow on my little graph. As soon as it hits 153, that's red. And that is danger zone. And so to me, once I settled into the first 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes of this race where I'm going uphill, running faster than I knew I'd start the race fast, but I didn't really account for the fact that it was going to be all uphill. And so all of a sudden I'm like finding myself, I'm like, okay, I just got to ride this like 146 to 150. That is all I'm thinking about. And if I get up to 151, 152, like that's like a yellow light almost comes on in my mind. It's like, be cautious. If I hit 153, it's like immediately I can feel that in my rate of perceived exertion that that's not sustainable. And so when we start to develop in execution, it's like I have that RPE and that actual confirmed data zone so dialed that I can just feel, and I'll look down. I was in the middle of it, like I could just look down and it's like, yeah, I'm at 153, 154. Like I have to dial this back. and then I'm comfortable between 146, 150, comfortable as in like I'm pushing hard and I'm in a competition, right? Like I'm expecting to empty the tank today. If there were times that I see it get down, I start to feel like, oh, I feel actually a little bit light. I look down, it's 144. And so it's like 154, I got a little bit more to give. And so if you are somebody who's looking to advance in the way that they execute in competition, I would say like really map out and understand the way that these tests that we do map out to then where you can compete and how you can push yourself in a race. Because if I'm just blindly off of like, am I feeling good? Can I keep going? Like, there's so many variables around that, right? But the perceived exertion is different. I'd say the perceived exertion is different than like, do I feel good, right? Because there were times of the race I didn't feel good, right? I'm climbing up a fucking Mosquito Pass up to 13,100 feet. Like, I'm not feeling good. But overall, to me, I was basically just looking to ride this 146 to 150 and then keep fueling that. Now, as this race unfolded, I peed once at the 1 hour mark, and that was a good pee. It was a little longer than I usually wait to pee into a race like this. Like I would have expected that I would have peed at 30 or 40 minutes, and I probably could have, but I waited to get to the top of a climb. I didn't want to stop in the middle of a climb, and I peed. That was a good pee, but I did not end up peeing. This is weaving into point number 5 here. Okay, this is actually starting to come together a little bit. Lesson number 5 is real-time problem solving. So basically, the structure of this race was that it left Leadville, and it had there was really no like little rolling sections. It was either going up or it was going down. And it started at, again, 10,000 some feet, and it went up to Mosquito Pass as the high point, which was 13,185 feet. And so the Mosquito Pass climb basically started at mile 10 or 11. That was also where I was going to see Cam, and Cam had a couple of friends with us, Larry and Katie. And so I had a little crew there. And so I was like, all right, let me just get, to mile 10, and then I'm going to do the Mosquito Pass climb. That's going to be about a 3-mile climb, maybe 2, a little more than 2, because it started close to 11. And then, and it went a little over 13. And then, then I'll get towards the back half of the race. And so to me, I peed at an hour, and then I get into this Mosquito Pass climb, and I kind of had no idea what to expect. Last year, totally separately, Cam and I went to Leadville and did a little training camp up there, and we did Hope Pass. And Hope Pass is part of the Leadville 100 course. I don't believe that Mosquito Pass is part of the Leadville 100 course. I'm not 100% sure. Hope Pass is like one of the really notable climbs of Leadville 100. And so we did that, but we did that as like just a hike from the bottom to the top and back. And it was like an 8-mile round trip. And I would say that the first like 2.5 miles, like you're kind of just hiking through the woods. Like it's going up the whole time, but it's not that rugged. And then the final mile-ish is when you get above the tree line. It starts to be like these rockier switchbacks. But to me, I mean, it was hardcore, and it was over 13,000 feet. So it was the highest up that I'd ever been at the time. But it wasn't that hard and that technical of a climb. Mosquito Pass was totally different. Mosquito Pass, very, very rocky, loose rock, and freaking long, man. Really long. Like over 2 mile straight up. And by the time that I got to like the final third of that, I was like, dude, please get this fucking over with. I had no idea. I couldn't really see visually where the actual top was. And so every time we got to a bend, I was just like, come on, man, not that much further. The race was also an out and back. So, right, I started to see people that were ahead of me end up coming back down, which gave me a little bit of hope. But then it was also like, oh, these are not people that have been anywhere close to me in the last however long. I haven't seen these people at all. So I'm probably not super close. Meanwhile, I hadn't peed. And so I'm like figuring out, like, just keep going. I'm thinking again of the Tahoe guys. I'm like, a big mindset that Cam had shared with me through Tahoe was like, just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And so to me, I obviously like wanted to pee, but I was really intentional to not stop in the middle of any climbs. I wanted to pee at peaks. I wanted to pee at transitions from climbs to descents, but I also was now going on almost 2 hours of no pee, which is not good for me in a race. So I end up just grinding my way up. I ended up fatiguing a bit towards the top of this climb. And this was like the one point in the race where my heart rate came down a little bit from that 146 to 150 bubble that I had. I ended up seeing like some mid to high 130s. And to me, I'm like, fuck, that's not a very good sign, because I don't know how long I can hold this high zone 3 effort. And I don't want to have held it for basically almost 3 hours, but then fade out in the final 2 or 3 hours that this race is going to take me. So I end up making my way up to the top of this pass. They've got an aid station up there. I pee at the top of this, and it's like dark yellow. I'm like, fuck. So I make a point to like take 5 minutes. I slam like 2 waters. I relax. I let my body settle. And I basically am like, all right, almost 3 miles to get back down this descent from Mosquito Pass. And then that will basically set me up to have 9-ish miles to go. And by the time that I get down this pass, what I ended up feeling out in this race is that certainly the uphill of Mosquito Pass was really challenging, but I ended up actually enjoying a lot of the climbs, because you can just lock into a rhythm. And you can lock into a rhythm where you're using your poles really well, your breathing is controlled, my steps are really efficient, my mechanics are dialed. And so this is all starting to blend together really well here. So the real-time problem solving that I would say is like at the top of that Mosquito Pass aid station, peeing and being intentional to take 5 minutes and drink a bunch of water so that I can catch up in some way. Now, I wasn't really looking to be taking a lot of time at aid stations. Every other aid station I filled up my bottle at and went right through. So I was probably there for less than 30 seconds. So that 5-minute stop for the way that I was executing this race was relatively significant. Onto the pole use. So I mentioned that it became enjoyable to do certain sections of uphill, right? Obviously, at some point, if it's just going up and up and up and up and up, you're like, fuck, all right, come on, man. But I liked the uphills and I really liked the poles. But one thing I also observed is that probably less than 10% of the field used poles. And I almost didn't use them because we were down in Leadville, down in town before the race started. We got down there at like 5:45 and we're walking around. And you know, I'm seeing other athletes and I'm like, fucking nobody has poles. I'm like, should I even use these poles? And I chose to take them, and I'm so glad that I did, because if I did not have poles, I would be like, why the fuck did I not bring poles? There's 6,000 feet of climbing. I'm going up mountains. Why would I not use poles? And I even observed other athletes, a lot of other people, they're doing this like style of climbing with no poles where their like hands are on their quads and they're like kind of pushing off themselves. But then I did see other people like almost swinging side to side to like generate momentum to go up the hill. And to me, I'm like, I think one of my strongest traits as a trail runner is my efficiency with poles. But also the people that are up in front of the race aren't using poles. So I'm like, that sticks out to me too. So for me in this race, I'm very glad that I had my poles. If I did not have them, I'd be pissed. They helped going uphill. There were a couple of times going downhill where I almost tripped and ate shit. This was a really rocky course. The trail was like, every part of the trail was relatively wide. There was no single track, but there was a lot of loose rock. And so there were a couple of times, especially coming down Mosquito Pass, that like I almost tripped and stumbled. And, you know, I usually have good reflexes to catch myself with my other leg. Like if my left toe trips up, my right foot kind of does that thing where it catches you. But because I had my poles out in front of me descending, my poles were able to keep me upright without much drama or much like shock to my muscles. So that's just something that I observed. I'm not sure if maybe there'll be a time when I just get more efficient as a trail runner and I'm like, hey, the poles are holding me back. Like the people out in the front of the race, you know, the winner of this race did it in like 3.5 hours or some shit. It was crazy. And he didn't use poles. And there were, you know, I ended up, I should say, I can share my, I was really stoked with my overall stats on this race. Again, I didn't really know what to expect. Where are my stats here? So, right, I mentioned that like that 5 hour and 6 hour frame was like kind of what I was like, you know, maybe somewhere in there. My finish time was 5 hours, 36 minutes, and 14 seconds. So almost exactly in the middle of that 5 and 6 hour number. Then that ended up being a total pace of 12 minutes and 53 seconds per mile with 6,000 feet of climbing. And then I was pretty stoked. I mean, my overall ranking, I you know, it was more just like, let me see what happens. But I was 120 out of 709. So top 20% for total participants. Of men, I was 98 of 502. So also top 20%. And then in my age group, I was 31 out of 171. So across the board, I was top 20%. Really stoked with that, especially because I wouldn't really consider myself having a lot of competitive trail experience. My competitive experience is more about 70.3s and Ironmans, and a lot of my trail experience is really coming from coaching, and then me just doing and completing events myself. So with that being said, I don't know. I would probably guess that of the people that finished in the top 120 where I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 of us had poles and the other 100 probably didn't. So who knows? There's probably something there. The people up front obviously have something going on, but they might have tactics and skills that I don't have yet. Because to me, I was just like, these are freaking cheat code for me. One thing that was also, I'm now kind of blending all these lessons here. So lesson number 6 was the tactical use of poles. Lesson number 7 was dynamic movement and posture. So poles really help me with posture. That would be the next thing that I say. Poles really help me with posture, especially on uphills. Like they make sure that my spine stays straight. I'm not hunching over. Like I see a lot of people hunching over, right? They were pressing on their quads, like I saw. They were swinging their arms side to side. And so the poles, right, because I'm really intentional, have the pole planted behind me. And then that also can encourage that quicker cadence that I like for climbing uphill, where I'm not like hiking myself over my hips. And to me, I'm going to blend lesson 7 and 8 here. So lesson 7 is dynamic movement and posture, and then lesson 8 is anchoring to other runners. So let me start with the dynamic movement. So the lesson from the 50K, the big lesson from coaching my athlete Ben at Great Divide 50K, I dropped a Substack on this. This is the idea of dynamic movement. And when you are in an ultramarathon, you want to vary the ways that your body can move through the course beyond just am I running or am I walking? And so off the top of my head, it's like, hey, you can be, you can be like power hiking up a hill, we'll call it power hiking, just whatever you would envision that to be. But then we can also think about like a quick cadence hiking where you're a little bit lighter on your feet, you're moving a little bit faster with your overall turnover and your cadence. Your poles are moving a little bit more quickly. Maybe you're a little bit more lower body focused there, where maybe on more of a true hike with poles is you're very upper body focused, right? The idea of just those being different and those being in your toolkit. Then you think about flats. Well, you can either be doing just like your sort of general trot of a run that you would do in an ultramarathon, but then you can also do like a power hike or a power walk. Shout out to Logan. Logan has mastered that and exercised that super well in Elephant Mountain 50 back in February with the squad. Being able to like walk at, Logan can do like 13-minute miles. Most people I would say targeting sub 15 is very effective. But then also on flats, like what I found it effective is like, hey, if you need like an energy reset, like open your legs up. Like you can run a little faster. Like don't go bust off into a sprint. Like you want to watch your heart rate, right? Relative to the heart rate zones I was talking about. You don't want to blast up into threshold. But like, can you open your legs up? Can you change which muscles are bearing load? Then we talk about going downhill, and it's like, okay, well, you can do sort of the downhill jog where like you're kind of bracing each step. Then you could do like a downhill hike. But then if the terrain calls for it, you can open up and you can run a little bit harder. And so those ideas of like, hey, if you're not feeling good, just change up the way that you move. Like I just rattled off 6 or 7 different ways to move. Like if your energy is feeling like it's dipping, try something different, right? Tap into your toolkit. And so for me, that was really effective, especially late in the race. I mentioned that coming back down from Mosquito Pass was like mile 13 and a half or something to 17-ish. And then there was a little uphill section for about a mile or two, but then there was like a mile or two of downhill from around mile 18 and 19 to about 20. And it was basically a wide dirt road, not even a trail, I'd say. It was like a dirt road. And so it was gradual enough that I could run it really well. And I rattled off like 8-minute miles. So totally not just trotting, like more actually running. I was holding both my poles in my right hand. And to me, like at that point, I'm 4 hours plus into this race. Like it's really valuable to be able to tap into a more dynamic way to move. Other little insight that showed up around that time related to the watch data screen setup. So I mentioned, right, I only wanted to see heart rate, pace, and total time. But my watch also was giving me lap alerts every mile. So at the top of the watch screen, it would say like lap 1, lap 2. So I had a sense of where I was at, but I also wasn't like looking at every single one. It would tell me lap and it would tell me the lap time. So I had a sense, right? But I'm not like focused on that. Now, with that being said, I ran really well into this aid station that was around mile 20, right? I come down on this dirt road, and Cam's buddy Larry let me know that the climb at mile 20 is a bitch. You're through Mosquito Pass, which is the huge part of the course, but there's also some challenge in this mile 20 climb. And so to me, I put out these great miles. That downhill stretch must have been a mile and a half because I had a complete mile in there, but then I also had probably a half a mile where I ran, but then I transitioned to going uphill. And so I was really curious to see when I would hit mile 20 because now I'm also getting into the back of this race. I'm like starting to think, all right, like I want to punch through on this thing. I don't want to fade out. How much longer can I hold this effort? Right. Get me through this thing. And I'm hiking and I'm going up this brutal climb and I'm going and I'm going and I'm going. And I'm like, when the fuck is mile 20? When is mile 20? And I end up going so long. And I'm like, I have to have missed the alert. I have to have missed the alert. And I'm going and I'm going and I'm just praying, please let me be through mile 20. And the next alert that pops up is lap 21. And I'm like, thank God I am through this thing. So that was very valuable. Also anchoring to other runners. So once the race, you got an hour or two into the race, started to see, right, what runners are near you. And to me, this became really valuable to hold myself accountable to different ways that I might have moved better than them if they move better than me in different ways. So there might be some runners that pass me on downhills, but I was passing them on uphills or vice versa. And so using that to like observe as the terrain unfolds, where am I staying amongst this group? And not just getting trapped in, oh, that guy passed me. I shouldn't let him pass me. I want to go catch him. Okay. I am hearing my son, Jack inside, and I think he's up from his nap. And so I am going to wrap here with the final 9th lesson, and that is understanding the bigger picture. And so as I'm punching through on this race, right, the first 3 miles were uphill and it was now and back. So the last 3 miles are downhill. So I'm super looking forward to those. And I am grinding and just holding on to this heart rate. And my final pacing, I would say, it was not anything crazy impressive. It was, around 8-minute mile, which is, that's a zone 2 run for me. But because of altitude and because of my work rate, like I was holding that 146 to 150. And the final mile and a half, I'd say, I started to feel a little tinge of almost like a cramp in my left and my right calf. Both of them at separate times were like just kind of letting me know that they've been working a long time. And so to me, right, I'm thinking about like, I want to complete this effort and I want to have this be a start to finish well executed race. But also in any race, right, there's a little bit of extra juice. You get a little adrenaline to push through the finish. And I don't know if it was a combination of just the fact that I was holding my most sustainable, hardest work rate. I've never held that kind of 146 heart rate. That was my heart rate average. High zone 3 for the whole 536. I have never held that heart rate for that long. So, personal best on effort for me. But understanding the bigger picture, the lesson here is that there's a world where I could have really gassed myself and finished running 6-minute miles and like gone hard as fuck. But I've got an Ironman in, 10 or 11 weeks now. And I want to keep myself healthy. And this race was, again, about putting myself into a new environment and challenging myself. And whether I ran 5:36:14 or whatever it was, or 5:36 flat, or 5:35:52, I was like, I'm not going to put myself at a risk for getting injured. I'm going to have a larger frame on this and know that I'm building towards an Ironman. I want to do this race. I was intentional to fuel it well. I want to be able to recover from it well, and I want to get right back to this Ironman build and ride my bike and being healthy to start running again. And so having that larger frame really helped me. And I finished the race strong. There's a world where I might have been able to go a little bit faster, but I honestly think that I was just holding on, best I could to that overall work rate of heart rate. So hopefully this was effective and valuable for you. I haven't really done a podcast like this. I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun. It was my first time racing in Leadville. Hopefully you picked up something from here that will make you a better athlete in the context of either your own performance or in the context of living life as the man that you want to be. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time. Peace.